Good morning, and thank you for coming on the first day of the new school year, 2018-2019 school year. Normally, this is an opportunity for positive back-to-school stories, a new school year full of hope and promise for the students and the educators who work with them. Unfortunately, this year is starting differently, as the Ford government has thrown the system into uncertainty with poorly thought out announcements and confusing communications. As you are aware, the Ontario government issued a directive that elementary educators would use a revised health and physical education curriculum starting today. The older curriculum that the government has reissued minimizes information, and in some cases, it has removed completely key topics that are vital for children in 2018. Teaching issues like consent, LGBTQ relationships, gender identities, and many other human development issues related to today's realities are not only necessary, but vital for student safety, well-being, and inclusivity. The actions of the government to rescind the 2015 curriculum undermines the very safety and well-being of Ontario students and families. The world our students live in today is very different than it was in 1998. The government has taken another action that undermines the professionalism, integrity, and professional judgment of teachers. It has set up a complaint or a snitch line, inviting parents to anonymously report any concerns regarding teachers and the curriculum. In a worst-case scenario, this snitch line would allow anonymous parents, or anyone as a matter of fact, to target any teacher for any reason. And the potential for abuse is enormous. But this snitch line is also about creating a culture of fear for Ontario workers, while our professionalism and years of teaching and being educators to thousands of students is directly being attacked. It is unprecedented and absolutely not necessary, not in any way. Educators work every day to foster a positive, safe, and inclusive environment for students, and our members deserve the same kind of working environment. Both actions on the part of the government are unreasonable and an infringement on the rights and freedoms that are guaranteed to teachers by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The creation of this snitch line ignores the systems already in place for parents and educators to deal constructively with issues at the school level. Of equal concern with this snitch line is that it is based on the premise that there is a problem with teachers. This fundamentally undermines parents' confidence in the high-quality public education system that elementary educators deliver. It is the role of government to build the system in a positive way, not to toss it into chaos. This morning, I'm announcing that ETFO has just filed an application for judicial review of the Minister of Education's directive on the 2015 Health and Physical Education curriculum and the parent snitch line. ETFO's application seeks an injunction to direct the government to leave the 2015 Health and Physical Education curriculum in place. This is vital to ensure that educators and school boards can continue to protect the safety and health of students. It also seeks to stop the operation of this unnecessary and counterproductive complaint or snitch line. ETFO is forced to take this action because students need information and answers to their questions to deal with the realities of 2018. Our union, ETFO, along with community groups and thousands of Ontario residents and parents, have raised this issue of concern with the government publicly and through a variety of advocacy mechanisms. But despite our efforts, our voices as professional educators are not being heard or respected. As the school year officially begins today, our union has no other choice but to pursue this legal action to ensure that the safety and health of kids, families, and educators are not put at risk. Quite simply, ETFO believes that the government's actions are an abuse of power and are in direct conflict with teachers' professional obligations enshrined within the Education Act and the standards of practice of the Ontario College of Teachers. ETFO also believes that the actions of the government are also in conflict with the Ontario Human Rights Code, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the professional obligations on teachers as set out in the Education Act and the standards of practice of the Ontario College of Teachers. This is why ETFO is taking legal action on these issues. In addition, ETFO has also applied to seek intervenor status in a case that was filed in August by parents and a student and is currently before the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal regarding changes to Ontario's curriculum. I want to end by saying that Ontario has an internationally recognized education system, one of the best in the world. However, this government is abusing its legislative power and using students for political gain. The human development of students should not be used as a pawn to appease some voters and deflect the real issues that are needed to build better schools. Chronic underfunding caused by an outdated education funding formula, violence in schools, a lack of support for students with special needs and mental health issues, and schools that need extensive repairs. These are the real issues affecting the learning conditions of students across this province. ETFO members have always and will continue to act in a professional way that puts students' needs first, and I am proud of that. Now I would like to, at this point, turn it over to Howard Goldblatt from Goldblatt Partners, LLP, who will represent ETFO in this matter. Howard will explain the application filed this morning on ETFO's behalf to seek a review and an injunction against this government. And when Howard's done, we would be happy to take questions. Howard?
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone, for attending this morning. I'm going to try and synthesize what it is that has been filed by ETFO today and what actually ETFO filed on Friday. So our challenge today, and you'll be provided copies with it or access to it, outlines the factual background of this application and the legal basis for the challenge, which in our view clearly establishes significant violations of charter rights and professional and ethical standards of teachers. We're developing and completing a record which will be filed in the court and will include evidence from teachers and experts on curriculum development and the development and implementation of the curriculum which has now been reverted to or revoked by this government. What we are seeking is the following, both in respect of the directive to return to what I would call the 1998 curriculum or the 2010 curriculum, as well as what Sam has described as the snitch line, or others might call it the reporting line. We're trying to quash the directives issued by the minister in both respects. We are seeking an order declaring a requirement to return to the old curriculum as being contrary to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and in particular Sections 2B, which protects freedom of expression, Section 7, which protects personal security, and the equality rights under Section 15. And we're also seeking an order declaring that the return to the old curriculum violates the principles of natural justice and procedural fairness. Just to follow up on what Sam has said, on Friday, ETFO formally intervened in the human rights case that has been brought by a number of parents and students who claim their human rights have been violated by the introduction or the reversion to the old curriculum. And more specifically, ETFO provided a declaration which is evidence in support of the request by these applicants to seek an expedited hearing and a stay of their proceedings. Let me be a little bit focused on some of the law. The Supreme Court has expressly identified that teachers are the medium for the transmission of values in our society and key actors in developing civic virtue and responsible citizenship in an environment free of bias, prejudice, and intolerance. The directive and the reporting line fly squarely in the face of these fundamental freedoms and values. The government has intentionally restricted the expressive freedom of teachers, prohibiting them from fulfilling their role as educators and preventing them from communicating accurate information critical to student health, safety, development, and participation in a modern, diverse, and pluralistic society. Their actions increase the risk of physical and sexual violence, transmission of sexually transmitted infections, cyberbullying, and online child exploitation, all of which engage the protection required by Section 7. And lastly, their actions perpetuate substantive discrimination against diverse and minority students, parents, and members of society by excluding topics related to sexual identity, sexuality, same-sex marriage, and a myriad of other modern, necessary matters that should be communicated in accordance with the professional judgment of the teachers. And lastly, the actions, including the reporting line, unreasonably require and/or coerce teachers into violating their legal, ethical, moral, and professional obligations under the Education Act, the standards of practice, the ethical standards of practice, all of which were promulgated by the Ontario College of Teachers as well as the Human Rights Code. So, we're happy to take some questions.
Yeah, well, we have said from the very beginning that our members, teachers, should continue to use their professional judgment, as Howard has outlined, in terms of their obligations and their professional responsibilities. And they should continue to exercise their professional judgment to ensure that the students that are in their care are getting the education that they need for a 2018 environment in this society.
You're aware that the CCLA has also filed an application, and they have sought to have it heard on an expedited basis. So we're discussing this matter with them. It is likely that there will be a coordination with respect to their application because the courts don't want to hear things more than once. We're bringing forward, as I've already indicated, a pretty fulsome record, and we're hoping that it can be heard as quickly as possible. But, you know, the actual timing of it will depend upon the coordination with the courts, the CCLA, and any other potential interveners, because I can tell you that there are a lot of organizations and groups that are very much interested in participating in this challenge.
Wonderful. Take the snitch line down. It's that simple. It's unnecessary. It's not needed. As I alluded to and Howard has spoken to, there are a number of different avenues from the school level right up through to the college that are in place now, and we don't need an additional snitch line. And let me be clear, that snitch line is not just for parents. Anyone can go on there from anywhere and report on a teacher if they wanted to. All of the access to the College of Teachers, to school administrators, to school boards is already currently there, and it is easily accessible by any parent in any part of the province. There is absolutely no need for a snitch line that, in my opinion, and ETFO's opinion, attacks the professional integrity, professional judgment of our members.
So can I just add this point, if I may? To the extent that you're right, and there already is a series of ways in which parents and other individuals can report this to the college, then Sam's quite correct. Take it down. But as we say in our material, the purpose and intent of this is actually to, not for the people who might want to make a report, but to act as an intimidating and coercive factor in respect of the teachers, to create a chilling atmosphere with respect to the teachers and interfere with their expressive rights. And so that's really what it's all about. There's a way in which parents can complain, and it's always been there. It's very clear in the College of Teachers legislation. But to the extent that it's now very public, it is intended to have an impact upon educators, which is what we think is fundamentally improper. From a legal perspective, yes, it's the purpose and effect. And the effect of it is manifest. It's clear, no doubt about that.
And in addition to that, just talk to some of our members across the province who are starting back at school today and the effect that that snitch line, as Howard has outlined, has had on them.
They're essentially the same arguments as we have with respect to the directive. They interfere with the ability of teachers to express themselves, to exercise their fundamental charter rights under Section 2B. They act as as I say, as a chilling effect, so they contravene Section 2B. They contravene the teacher's ethical and professional responsibilities. And they also contravene in the terms in which they have an impact both in the classroom and, frankly, beyond the classroom, because teachers reach way beyond just the classroom in terms of the fundamental protection under Section 7. And without any question, they have an impact on rights under Section 15, equality rights, a significant impact upon those rights. And I would ask that you just take a look at our application. We've laid that out very clearly. We have some significant facts in that, and the argument, to the extent that we have in brief form, it's spelled out in that. Well, I'm going to defer to Sam, but let me just say that it has always been the case that teachers have been able to exercise their professional judgment in expanding upon and tailoring the curriculum to meet the needs of their students and to meet the needs of a modern and diverse society. And what the entirety of what we have here is to put a significant constraint, and we say an impermissive constraint, on their ability to do that.
And just two other points, if I may. One is the curriculum that the ministry has made available is available online and online only. There are no professional development sessions set up for our members to proceed on a go-forward basis. And a simple issue, a very practical example of the confusion that this has caused and where teachers are now is, let's just take a kindergarten class or a grade 1 class, and they're talking about families, moms and dads. And one of the students in that classroom puts their hand up and says, I don't have a mom and a dad. I have 2 moms. That's not included in the curriculum that this government released in terms of LGBTQ relationships, same-sex marriage. What is that teacher supposed to do? And what is that child, and if that teacher decides to take that as a teachable moment to talk about same-sex couples, is this government going to act and punish that teacher for doing that in 2018?
And I would add one other point. As our application shows, the curriculum that was in place until a couple of weeks ago was the result of probably one of the most extensive consultation exercises that the ministry has undertaken. And, with a snap of fingers or a flash of a pen, that's all been undone. And that's one of the reasons why we're arguing with respect to not just the charter violations, but the entire natural justice and procedural fairness, which has a direct impact on students, parents, as well as teachers.
Well, we have said from use that teachable moment that I just talked about, and if the teacher responds using their professional judgment to act on that teachable moment, and the government acts to punish them, we have said that we will do whatever is necessary to defend our members in that situation and all members across the province on a go-forward basis, whatever we have to do to protect them. It's that important. Actually, we have been so very pleased with the reaction of some 30 boards and boards who have recently, like the Toronto District School Board and the Waterloo District School Board, who have actually sat down and in support of the content, for example, of the 2015 curriculum and in support of teachers and educators, have been very clear about the society we live in and that education needs to be inclusive on a go-forward basis. We shall see. Off the top of my head, I think every union leader in this province, including the leader of the Ontario Federation of Labour, are on the same page as we are in terms of the need for that 2015 curriculum to be in place. And I want to be very clear that what we have said from the beginning is the simple solution here to get rid of the chaos, the uncertainty, and the attacks is just to leave the 2015 curriculum in place until the government does what they've promised in terms of consultations. That's how it's worked for decades in terms of implementing a new curriculum. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on a poll that you've done. I haven't seen the poll. I haven't seen how it was implemented, so I apologize. No, no, absolutely not. I would suggest to you that the vast majority of parents, the parents that I've spoken to, the parents who have contacted me, and not our members, have been very supportive, in fact, of the 2015 curriculum being left in place, and our position, as we've stated for over a couple of months now.
Well, I mean, clearly, I think it indicates that there are some very significant challenges that are being brought forward by. It's not just the case on Friday. It was the Tesla case that for which there was a positive decision in favor of the Tesla people. There is the case that we argued, I think, extensively on Friday that engaged provisions of the Charter. There's this case today that engages provision of the Charter. I think what it simply says is that this government has to be respectful and mindful of fundamental rights and freedoms. And in the same way as this union was the leader in attacking Bill 115, which imposed collective agreements on teachers under the prior government successfully, this union will continue to assert that at the end of the day, fundamental rights and freedoms must be given primacy, and that the Charter is the supreme law of the land. So if we believe, and we believe in very strongly, that the government has violated those fundamental rights, this union will be there arguing that point.
No reaction thus far. I can say to you honestly that the Minister of Education, the Premier of this province, have not been in touch with education stakeholders or partners, if you will, including ETFO, since they were sworn in. We find that, as do other education stakeholders, disturbing. I think the approach that's been taken by this government for me and as far as ETFO is concerned is, yes, it seems homophobic in a way. Yes, it's trying to eliminate key aspects of the society that we live in: gender identities, transgender individuals, same-sex marriage. I don't know what else you would call it. We're simply saying, you know what, it's 2018, and you can't push all of that back into a closet back to 1998, and we're not going to stand by and allow that to happen.